The most important parenting lessons are usually hidden inside ordinary moments. Most parents are looking for the big teaching moments, while the most powerful ones are happening every day right in front of them. Every time you're in the same room as your kid, cooking, cleaning, driving, eating, your standards are visible. Your standard for completion shows up in whether you clean the kitchen after dinner or you leave it. Your standard for fellowship shows up in whether your phone is on the dinner table or stays on the coffee table in a different room. Your standard for how you handle frustration shows up in whether you sigh about the task or you find a way to make it fun. Your kid is reading all of it, and you don't even have to say a word. Which means the question is, how and when are you supposed to install or model standards for your kid? This video is about taking control of when and how it's happening. I'm going to give you 3 ways to install standards deliberately. 1 meal experience that contains more opportunities than most parents use in a month, and the emotional mechanism that determines whether any of it actually sticks. You already have everything you need. You just need to know where to look. Okay, there are only 3 ways to install anything in a child. Most parents only ever use one. And the most powerful one is the one that nobody talks about. Method 1 is you can wait for a moment to present itself. Like something happens, you recognize it as an opportunity and you use it. That's the most common method and also the slowest because it's reactive. And you're not always there when the moment arrives. Moments that happen without you, they're going to install standards or beliefs regardless. You just won't know what. Method 2, create a moment. Design an experience with lessons or standards attached, like a camping trip or a hard conversation or a deliberate challenge. This can work fast and it can be powerful, but it requires pre-thought in your already super busy day. And it can feel a little forced if the kid senses the setup. Kids are sharp that way. Method 3, find the moments that are already there. Look at what you're already doing every day. See opportunities to imprint standards on your kids. This method works inside the time you already have. It requires no planning, no special experiences, no perfect moment, just the ability to see what's already there. Method 3 is the most powerful because it's invisible. You probably never recognize the moments either. And then the kid never feels like they're being taught anything because they're not being taught. They're being shaped inside ordinary moments that don't feel like anything. That's the method this video is about. Now, I used all 3 at my martial arts school and home. Method 1, when life handed me something useful. Method 2, for specific concepts that needed a designed experience. But method 3 was the engine. It was running all day, every day, inside meals and chores and car rides and conversations, and it never stopped. The most consistent installation I ever did happened inside the most ordinary activity in my house, dinner. Every night, multiple standards imprinted and installed in my kids, and none of them were announced. So, here's what you can do. Look at your day, list 3 things you're already going to do with your kid or near your kid. One of those 3 things contains at least one opportunity you're currently missing. That's where we start. Most parents see one opportunity in the ordinary moments. There's actually 3 in every single thing you do with your kid. And you may be leaving 2 of them on the table because you never put much thought into it. Here's how I look at it. Every activity has 3 parts. You have the setup, which is getting stuff ready to do the thing, then the thing you're doing, and then the cleanup. That's true for cutting grass, for a car ride, for a meal, for really anything. But most parents focus entirely on the middle, the thing itself. The grass gets cut, the food gets eaten, driving to martial arts class, and then it's over. But the setup and the cleanup are where some of the most important standards operate. And they're being modeled whether you think about them or are aware of them or not. 3 parts means 3 opportunities inside every single ordinary moment. That's not a small thing. Over weeks and months and years, that math changes everything. And what an incredible life experience it would be if mom and dad set everything up, the kid just did the thing, and then mom and dad cleaned it all up. That would be amazing. I also want that setup. Now, everything I did with my kids, I broke into 3s deliberately because breaking everyday interactions into 3 parts stops you from seeing it as one event and starts you seeing it as three opportunities. A meal was never just eating, it was preparation of the food, fellowship around the table, and cleaning it all up at the end. Three completely different opportunities to imprint some standards inside one ordinary dinner. A car ride was never just a car ride, it was getting them in the car, the presence and conversation of the drive, and then the debrief after. Three moments to attach something to or even teach something valuable. A hard conversation was never just the conflict, it was the moment before the talk where you decide the direction you're going to take the talk, then the actual talk, and then the moment after the hard talk. When you figure out if your kid actually got it. Once you train yourself to see the three parts, you can't stop seeing them. They're everywhere. And every moment your kid's near you becomes 3 times more useful than it was before. So take the next meal you have with your kid, and before it starts, write down the 3 parts. What happens in the setup? What happens during the meal? What happens in the cleanup? What does each part actually require? You don't have to focus on what it accomplishes, what it requires of the people doing it. That's where the opportunities to teach standards live. For example, there are more standards operating inside one dinner than most parents consciously install in a month. You just haven't been looking for them. So let's talk about that dinner. And let's also break it into the 3 parts that I just talked about. There are a bunch of opportunities to model standards inside each one, and none of them require a lecture. All of them happen whether you're aware of them or not. What changes when you see them is that you can make them visible. You can model them deliberately. You can use them as standard installation opportunities instead of just letting them pass. Now, are you sure you're ready to hear this? I mean, it could embarrass you that you never noticed all these opportunities. And this is dependent on you letting your kids help you prepare meals and do stuff. First, there's the setup, the meal preparation. Before anybody eats, there's work to do. And inside that work, there are standards operating at every level. There's cleanliness, how you handle the food, whether the surfaces are clean before you start and clean after you use them. That's not just a hygiene session, that's a standard for how you operate in a shared space and how you care for the food. The kid who watches you wipe down the counter before you start is learning something you never said out loud. Then you have organization. Getting everything close to where it needs to be before you even start. Ingredients in the piles, utensils within reach, the table set before the food is ready. That's a standard for preparation, for doing the thinking before you do the work. That shows up in every project that kid will tackle for the rest of their life. There's dexterity and control, how you handle a knife, how you move in the kitchen. There's a standard for precision operating there, for doing the thing correctly, not just quickly. There's delayed gratification. The food isn't ready yet. We don't eat until it's ready. That's one of the most important standards a child can internalize, and it's built into every single meal preparation if you let it work. Then there's time management. Different things cook for different lengths of time. What goes in first? What gets started last? There's a standards problem. How do you coordinate multiple moving pieces so everything arrives together? The kid who helps you figure that out is learning something they can't learn in school. And finally, the meal itself and the family fellowship that goes with it. This is where the standard for being present operates. Phone on the table or off the table, eyes on screens or each other, conversations about the day or silence. Here's the standard that I want you to sit with. Fellowship means something specific. It means sharing who you actually are with the people you're eating with, not performing, not surviving the meal, actually being there. Your standard for fellowship is visible to your kid every single night at that table. Does it look like forced togetherness or is it actual fellowship? Oh, there's also gratitude. Whether you pause before eating and say a prayer or thank the preparers, whether you acknowledge the work that went into the meal, whether you notice and verbally acknowledge the things that you have, or that you're grateful for having this time with your family, That standard is being set at the dinner table every night. I forgot about enjoyment. Whether the meal feels like a gift or an obligation, whether being together feels like something worth having, that's a standard too. And it might be the most important one at the table. And now, the last part, the cleanup, which is the completion of the meal. This is where one of the most important standards in the whole meal operates, and it's where most parents skip. A task isn't finished until everything's back in its place. You don't get credit for cooking if you leave the kitchen destroyed. The meal isn't over when the food is gone. The meal's over when the kitchen looks like it did before you started. That standard travels to every project, every job, every relationship, everything that kid will ever start and either finish or leave half done. The standard for completion they learn at the kitchen sink at age 8 is the same thing that affects them when they're 30. So let's see, you have economy of motion when you're cleaning it all up, how you clean, whether you're efficient or chaotic, whether you think about the most logical sequence or just grab the nearest thing. A standard for how to move through a task intelligently is being modeled every time you do the dishes. And there's also reflection. How did that go? What would we do differently next time? What was good about it? That's a standard for learning from experience, for not just moving on, but actually taking something from what you did. You see, at one dinner, 3 parts. You had standards for cleanliness, organization, dexterity, delayed gratification, time management, being present, gratitude, enjoyment, completion, economy of motion, and reflection. That's a lot of opportunities right there. And here's the cool part. You don't have to teach all of them at one time. Just pick one, just one. Explore it for a week, then move to another. So try it. Pick one standard from the meal, just one. Cleanliness during prep, completion during the cleanup, being present during the fellowship. Then for 1 week, model that standard deliberately and visibly. You don't lecture about it. I mean, you can talk about it, but don't force it. Just kind of do it. Out loud if something fits naturally, but silent if it doesn't. And watch what the kid absorbs. You'll be surprised how quickly one visible standard starts showing up and how they operate. Now, none of the standards in that meal install properly if the emotional context is wrong. A laughing kid isn't defending or pushing back. A defending kid isn't receiving any new information. You don't get to skip this part. Every interaction with your kid has 3 ingredients: you, an emotion, and the kid, who's the observer, the experiencer, and the judge. The kid is always judging by the same criteria. Is this fun or not fun? Or is a good feeling or bad feeling attached to this person and this activity? Really, that's how the brain works. It links things together. It links emotions to activities and or people. You may even call those links memories. And that evaluation is happening whether you're aware of it or not. Well, actually, you do it too. And the links are accumulating in your child. Every positive interaction is a link they'll want to repeat. Every negative interaction is a link they do not want to repeat. This is why they push back sometimes. If you have a lot of positive interactions tied to helping you cook dinner, you'll be able to install lots of valuable standards. If home and you are linked to positive emotions, the installation has no resistance. The kid's open, receptive, leaning in. The standards you model get absorbed because the kid wants to be near you and wants to be in the activity. If home and you are linked to negative emotion, nothing gets in. Not necessarily because the kid is bad, because their brain has linked you under something to endure rather than something to absorb. Now, in my school, I had to manage this emotional brain link ratio just to keep the doors open. A kid comes into the school. If I approach him or her with a serious face and interrogate him about, do you think you can handle karate? That interaction is negative. They try the class and I forget to acknowledge their effort. Another negative. I walk them out and tell their mom they didn't earn a stripe today. Third negative. 3 interactions with me. before class, during class, and after class. Look, there's me accidentally breaking it into 3 parts again. But he experiences 3 negative emotions, all of them linked to me, the school, the uniform, and karate. That kid will not sign up. The school wasn't the problem. The links became the problem. It was the emotions he linked to the experiences or interaction with me in that room wearing the uniform. So instead of a kid having bad emotions linked to me, my school, and the uniform, I made sure I linked only positive emotions to the context of the karate, including me. I couldn't have kept my doors open for 35 years if I didn't understand how kids process emotions and how all it links up in their brain. Now at home, I used the same methods. I wanted home linked to peace, safety, family, enjoyment, fun. I wanted every interaction with me to produce a positive emotion attached to me or the activity or home. If I could do that consistently through normal daily things, there would be no pushback, and there wasn't, because everything was a good feeling attached to being near me or us doing a thing together. Like at dinner, I threw carrots. When I was in the middle of my meal prep with my kids, I'd flick a piece of carrot at one of them out of nowhere. They'd throw it back. I mean, who doesn't like a good food fight? It became a thing. I put ice down their shirt while they were focused on doing their part of the meal prep. It was chaos. It was laughing. And the whole time we were working. The ice didn't undermine the standard for organization. It reinforced the standard for fun, which is a standard. It's my standard for how I show up in ordinary moments. And my kids were watching it all unfold. I used to tell my kids and my students the same thing. If I am not having fun, I don't want to do it either. And that wasn't a joke. That was a standard. And every carrot I threw was that standard made visible. And check this out. Just before my middle son had his first baby, he said, "Dad, you look like you had such a good time being a dad. You were always goofing around. Everything was so fun." See, a laughing kid isn't defending or pushing back. And a kid who isn't defending is absorbing everything you do. That's not just my personality trait. It was a decision. You choose to find the fun in what you're already doing because that's just how you operate. The kid watches that standard and it gets linked up in their tiny little brains. Now, ask yourself honestly, what is linked up in your kid's brain about you? Not in the big moments, in the Tuesday night ones, in the cooking and the cleaning and the car rides. Is home linked to a good feeling or is it an obligation? Is being near me linked or near you linked to being open or closed? One carrot, one genuine laugh, one moment where you show that doing things with you is fun will create the links that you need to imprint the standards that you want. Now I learned I can use any emotion to install a standard, positive or negative, it doesn't matter. Every emotion is an opportunity if you do it right. The positive baseline isn't about avoiding the harder moments, it's about making hard moments teachable. If you've established a bit of a history of linking positive experiences in your kid, then when they break a rule or do something stupid, you can use a negative emotion like anger to develop some standards as well. When home is mostly linked to positive emotions, a negative moment really stands out. The kid notices it because it's unusual, which means they're paying attention, which means they're actually open to what comes next if you handle it correctly. The negative moment becomes a high contrast installation opportunity precisely because it's not the norm. You didn't avoid the hard thing, you built the context that makes the hard thing useful. The mechanism that I used was always the same. I used questions, not lectures. And hold off on the punishment for just a minute. Use questions that walk the kid toward a conclusion that they'll own. One of my kids had a bad attitude during something we were doing together, and I handled it the way I always handled it. I'm very direct, and it ended badly for him. Later, I went to their room and I sat down and I asked questions with a smile on my face like, "So, did you enjoy that?" And they go, "No." "Well, you did have a choice. You could have had a good attitude and we would have had a good time because that's how I roll. Or you could be a brat about it and you chose to be a brat. So I treated you like a brat. because that's what I thought you wanted based on your behavior. I mean, why would you choose that? And they would be silent. Are you against having fun? Are you in the mood for an argument? Because I love arguments. That question is almost impossible to answer seriously, but I'd make sure they answered everything. No, I'm not against fun. So then, why did you act that way? I mean, you could have chosen to have a great attitude and we'd be laughing right now, but you went with the not great attitude choice and you created a problem that I have to fix. I'd walk them through it, not to punish them, not to lecture, to logic, to think, to let them find the conclusion themselves, to think their way through it. Then I'd ask the hypothetical, based on every time you and I have done something together, what would happen next time if you just said, yes, sir, with a smile and did the thing with me? They knew the answer. They had walked themselves there and the conclusion was there. It was theirs. That conversation only worked because the negative moment was unusual. If every interaction was negative, the question would be an attack. But because the positive baseline was the norm, the question landed as a genuine puzzle worth solving. I didn't avoid the negative moment, I used it because I built the context that made it usable. So, the next time something goes wrong in your house, don't react immediately, let it resolve, then go to the kid, sit down and ask questions. Not questions to trap them, but questions that walk them toward the conclusion that you want them to own. Did you enjoy that? You had a choice. Why did you choose that? Did you want to get in trouble? What would you choose next time? Let them think their way to the answer. The answer they arrive at, it'll stick infinitely longer than the one you bark out. And the negative moment becomes one of the most powerful installation opportunities you'll ever have. Okay, here's where we are. Your standards are already operating. Every ordinary moment is already showing your kids something. The only question is, do you know what's getting in? And are you doing it on purpose? You now have 3 ways to install a standard deliberately. Wait for a moment, create a moment, or find the moments that are already there. You know that every activity has 3 parts, and most parents are only using one of them. You know that one dinner contains more installation opportunities than most parents consciously use in a month, and that standards operating inside that dinner are being absorbed by your kid whether you're aware of them or not. You know that the emotional links your kid is building about you determine whether any of it actually sticks. That a laughing kid isn't defending or pushing back. That fun is a standard. And that every carrot you throw is a link into the relationship that makes all of this work. And you know that negative moments aren't problems to manage. They're high contrast installation opportunities, but only if the positive baseline is already there. Now here's what I want you to do. Do it tonight. Pick one standard from that meal breakdown. Just one. Model it visibly during dinner while they're helping you prepare it. Don't announce it. Don't lecture about it. Just do it. And watch what your kid absorbs. Because the most powerful parenting moments aren't the ones that you planned. They're the ones you were already having that you just started paying attention to today. Dinner's in just a few hours. You already know what to look for. Start there. And if you're trying to build character in your kids on purpose, subscribe and I'll help you do it.